Howdy, folks. So, I did think the irony wasn't completely lost on the fact of a YouTube channel that's supposed to be about all things Arch, and we've been looking at installing some other distros without actually looking at how to install Arch. So, based on that, today we're going to install Arch. However, we are not going to do it the wiki way. Now, yes, I know that the Arch Wiki is the tried and tested way and has some of the best documentation, if not the best documentation for Linux you can find online. However, we are not going to build Arch that way. What we're going to do is use the new Arch installer. So, let us get started here with Virtual Machine Manager. Open it up. And what I did is today I downloaded the latest Arch ISO. Arch Linux picks up correctly. Let's give this 4 gigs of memory. I'll give it 4 CPUs out of my 4 CPU cores. And let's make it 40 gigs. Forward. Arch Linux is fine. Yes. Let's start it up. And as you can see here, we have multiple options. We're just going to choose the first normal medium. Now, there's quite a couple of ways to install vanilla Arch. There are dedicated installers like Arch GUI installer, which is a third-party installer script, I suppose, best way of putting it, or image. There's Anarchy installer, there's quite a bunch. But this is the original and based Arch installer that was recently released and updated. So what I'm going to do is it takes you straight to the command line and go Arch install, and let's take it from there. First thing it'll do is check connectivity, so make sure you are online. And here we go. So as you can see, it's all text-based install. So here we like it. It's already configured for English, US, mirror region. I'm not going to worry about that. Local language, encoding. So drives. They've made a lot of improvements recently. So if we hit enter, it shows us the correct block device, VDA. So we're going to just select enter there. Then, of course, as we move further down, what we're going to do is we don't want an encryption password. No. Bootloader, grub, fine. Do we want to swap? Well, I'm just going to say no. Root password, we're not going to enable a root password. What we will do is user account. So let's just type in a username. I'm going to, of course, use gosh and type in a strong password. Again, it tells us this isn't the best password, so we say we accept that, so we just confirm the password. Do we want the user gosh to be a super user or part of sudo? So yes, we do. And we are happy with that, so confirm and exit. Let's scroll down here. Profile. Well, do we want a desktop environment, minimal environment, X server, or Xorg? For this, make it simple. I'm just going to choose a desktop environment, and I'm going to choose KDE. Right, takes us to the next page of a graphics driver. Again, for this example, I'm just going to choose all open source as a default, but depending on your hardware, VMware, VirtualBox, NVIDIA proprietary, or open source modules. So I'm just going to select that. Audio, I'm going to select Pipewire. I'm not going to select additional packages. Network configuration, I'm going to choose the option to copy the ISO network configuration to the installation. Automatic time sync, additional repositories, multi-lib, so we have 32-bit. And it actually tells us here that one config option is missing. And what is that? The disk layout. So after we selected the drive, right below it is the disk layout option, so hit enter. And here it gives us the option where we can select what to do with each drive, or wipe all the drives and use a best effort system. So I'm going to select the second option, and I'm going to choose ext4. And do we want a separate partition for home? Yes. And all of the options should now be selected. I'm going to save the configuration, save it all, save it into the default directory path, and I'm going to hit install and hit enter. And as you can see, the system counts down. Again, there might be a bit of controversy around choosing this installer, but again, not everyone these days wants to do step by step as per the wiki, and it is great to see that Arch themselves have actually put together a text-based installer. It at least makes the entry level to Arch a lot easier for users than previously. I know a couple of people might disagree with it, but I think it's actually a very, very good thing. I myself would quite often prefer to rather use an installer from Arch directly than it would be to use a third party. Having said that, there are some very good third party images or installers that takes us back to vanilla Arch as much as possible. As you can see through here, really quick, it's installing and downloading the first set of base packages while it's updating the various dependencies and installing the firmware modules. What you'll find next is once it's gotten the base software, it will actually continue running and it will then download the additional software, which in this case, of course, will be for KDE. So I'm just going to let this continuously run. As you can see here, it's just busy with the grub install, and now it is downloading the additional audio packages amongst everything else, as well as Pipewire. And now it's busy installing Xorg, multi-libraries, Vulkan graphics drivers, and now it's basically moving on to the last step or last bit of software to grab, which in our case here will be Plasma. And all in all, actually, depending on your hardware, depending on your internet speed, this is quite quick. I would suggest if you're installing this on a mobile device, rather use a network cable initially, and then afterwards configure it with Wi-Fi. You can configure the Wi-Fi in the beginning, but it can be a bit of a hit and miss affair, just depending on what hardware you have by your side as well. Okay, so as you can see here, busy installing KDE and KDE's dependencies. So an option there of Wayland as well as Xorg. Loading. I must admit, I'm actually really impressed with the speed of this. Okay, now do we want to root into the newly installed system from person/and config? I'm actually going to say no, and I'm going to reboot. So I'm just going to type in reboot, and if everything went well, the system should boot up into our new installation. So you can see it's installed grub correctly, identified Arch correctly. Now to see if it will display. Yep, that looks like KDE. Automatic installs with Plasma or X11. I'm going to just go to use X11 as it's a virtual machine. And I'm just going to log in. Give it a few seconds. And over here we have a vanilla Arch installed. Let me just fix the resolution. So let's get to display monitor. Change it to correct resolution. Apply it. And I'm just going to make this dark theme as well. I think I forgot to save the config as well, unfortunately. So let me just go back here. Okay, so it did actually save it. But of course, all the normal default settings are here perfectly, which is actually really, really nice. So I just need to hit home there and go dark. And here we go. We can just go about. As you see here, latest kernel, latest Plasma, latest Arch. Or easy peasy and quite quickly. By default, it's not running much out the box, so about 1.3 gigs of memory, as well as just about 6 to 8% of the CPU. Bearing in mind it might possibly be doing a bit of indexing in the back end as well. So yes, gone are the days of having to spend hours installing Arch. As you saw here, we installed it relatively quickly. And if you have any questions, issues, feel free to let us know in the comment section. And have a good day further.